I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Got a fun show for you today. My guest is Guy Anderson. Be sure and check out my films. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. I Call It Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and many more. Visit our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, where we feature some of your favorite podcasts and content creators. Today, I want to welcome back to the show Guy Anderson. He is an author and researcher. It started his fascination with conspiracy theories and the hidden occult history at a very young age. His recent books focus on the mysteries of the Tartarian Empire, and he has a new book about conspiracy theories. Guy, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
Excellent, man. It's great to have you back on. Really enjoyed our conversations last time. We focused on your work with Tartaria and looking into alternative history. Today, I'm really excited to share your book, Conspiracy Theories from Agartha to Zombies. The title says a lot, but you focus on many compelling theories that have surfaced over the years that probably come across this show many times. My audience is most likely familiar with many of them, but you go very deep and you give some great insights into the possibilities surrounding these conspiracy theories. So really looking forward to sharing this with the audience. Before we do, it's been a little while. Remind the audience just a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more.
Yeah, so I suppose the best way of describing me is I'm a conspiracy theorist. And love that term or hate it, that is exactly what I am. And I've been researching conspiracies for over 30 years. I joined the Freemasons, became a Master Freemason. I'm an ordained church minister. I've done everything I can think of to get more information. By hook or by crook, I'll dig. But I've been following people like David Icke for a long time, and obviously moving on to the work of Graham Hancock, Freddie Silver, and so on, Zachariah Sitchin. I suppose my primary focus is Tartaria. That's always going to be my favourite conspiracy because I believe that's the biggest of them all. But obviously, human cloning is probably secondary to that, and I've been researching human cloning longer, so a couple of years ago I wrote a book on Tartaria. I didn't know if anybody would buy it or not, and they did. Yeah. And now it's available in Japanese and in Polish and German, and and since then I've written a book on cloning called Rise of the Clones, and then my latest book is 87 of my favorite conspiracy theories. And they're based upon my website, blog, and the posts I put on Facebook every day. But they're expanded upon, and obviously I don't have an algorithm in my book, so I can say exactly what I mean. So it's dark, it's nightmare fuel, it's not for everyone. But I certainly wouldn't want to give it to someone who just had a booster.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So
yeah, they're going to freak out.
If you were pressured to say your favorite conspiracies of all time, maybe top 2 or 3, which would those be?
Well, it definitely is Tartaria. Definitely Tartaria. And followed by that, I mean, it's not a conspiracy, but I would like to know what happens behind closed doors in places like the World Economic Forum, in a meeting between bloodline families. You know, but that's not actually a conspiracy because we already know that they're up to nefarious things. So it's not a conspiracy as such. And also religion. I would like to know, did that all start from the Sumerian text? Is God, and when it's plural in the Old Testament, is that Enkin Enlil? If not, who is it? Who made us? Was it the Anunnaki, the Elohim? Who? So I suppose our creation. Now that is a conspiracy because we've had that hidden from us. So I suppose our creation, who put us here? How were we created, and for what purpose? Was it for as a slave race? So I suppose that is a conspiracy. People do, I'm sure, know exactly how we got here, but they're not sharing it with us. So our creation would be the next one. And I think after that, I would like to know what's going on in Antarctica. Is it an ice wall or is it a continent? Yeah, because there'll be people out there say, of course it's just a continent, or of course there's an ice wall. Or a friend of mine, I've been told this a few times, a friend of mine went to Antarctica and he was allowed on it. Yeah, well, he wasn't allowed to fly over it, was he? Right. He didn't see all of it. He went to a very limited, kind of section, if you like, that they're allowing reduced numbers of people to go and visit. I imagine at quite some cost. So yeah, I think that because that in itself instantly takes us into, is it a flat Earth or are we on a spinning ball? That answers a lot of questions. Not only do you get to find out what's going on in Antarctica, you might well get to find out exactly what the structure of the Earth is and if there's anything else out there. So that kind of, ticks a few boxes in one. What about you?
Lately, I have been looking into the nature of reality as it relates to the afterlife, how there is profound crossover between paranormal experiences and altered states and dreams, and basically what lies beyond our perception and what are we doing here? It's a big question, but the nature of reality itself is really what I've been focusing on a lot.
So this would answer, are we in a simulation? A lot of people are big on that at the moment. I keep hearing about it.
More and more people, now that there's more awareness of the level of deception and corruption, they start to question everything. And the deeper they dig, it unfortunately brings up more questions. A lot of people are at the point where they're just throwing their hands up and saying, it looks like everything is fake. It looks like everything is theater. The level of theatrics that we have to deal with in this reality is beyond most people's ability to fathom, really. It goes pretty deep, and we'll get into some of that because this is a conspiracy show. You've got a conspiracy book, so let's go. Let's start with some of the ones in your book. We may get to some that aren't even in your book, but going back to our ancient past, you do write about Atlantis. What are some of your favorite aspects about the Atlantis conspiracy?
It's something that I think they tried to revive in Tartaria. And when I give talks on Tartaria, I always describe it as being an echo of Atlantis. And I think that that's what they were trying to reproduce. And I think that, and this is, as I've stated a couple of times, it's just my thoughts on it. Because we can't prove any of this. Obviously, there'll be people out there that think they can. But I think other than the Vatican vaults and the deep state, none of us really know for sure. I think that their ethos, their way of life, was handed down through priesthood. Because that appears to be how a lot of the Tartarian masters were getting information on how to harness energy from the ether and how to build using cymatics. So I think that Atlantis would be a magnificent version of Tartaria. If we look at some of the incredible cathedrals and star forts we have across the Earth. Well, we could amplify that several times, maybe tenfold, if we think about what Atlantis looked like. With regard to its location, I think it's the Eye of the Sahara.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, because that does not look like a not natural formation. And it's in rings. It looks, and if we bear in mind sort of water levels and so on at the time, then it could well have been surrounded by water. So yeah, and I've been chatting about this with someone called Roger Spur. He's got a channel called Mud Fossil University. Yeah, now he's my go-to guy on anything like that. When it's, if it's a mountain, if it's an anomaly, if it's on Google Earth and you can find, and you can zoom in and find something unusual, he will dig. He's traveled, found rocks that appear to be giant feet and toes, and actually paid to have them independently tested and found human DNA in them. And he's presented work to Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins. So yeah, that's the location for it. And for me, it kind of resonates with Tartaria, but on a more grander scale.
Do you think Edgar Cayce's visions of Atlantis were at all accurate?
That's the problem, isn't it? How could we know?
Right.
How could we possibly know? And that's the same with so many of these conspiracies that are similar to Atlantis, like the ice walls or like Agartha. We don't know the moon is another one. So I can't answer that question because I've got nothing to compare it to. I mean, the first we have is really Plato, and that was handed down to him. That wasn't a first-hand account. That was passed to him, wasn't it? That was shared knowledge. So I don't know. I don't know what we've got to compare it to, frankly.
Based on the evidence that we have, do you believe that the level of understanding and technology wasn't necessarily something of sci-fi or what we're relating technology to today, but more of deeper understandings of nature and energy and construction and harmoniously work with energy and nature?
So the comparison would be, if we had to pick one, are we thinking that it is very, very high level technology, very advanced tech, perhaps beyond what they're using in dumb bases?
Right.
Or is this actually more spiritual to a degree? And I think it's that. And I think that actually there is a possibility, and a lot of people are looking into this and exploring it, that this is manifested. Because every single particle, every single part of anything, we're all just matter, aren't we? And we can form matter. So imagine the power of 100 people that understand cymatics, vibration and frequency together, manifesting at the same time without EMF and without a calcified pineal gland and so on. What is possible? So I think it may well be for it to align with constellations and resonate at 432 hertz. That's a very much that's inside. That's not a physical thing, is it? That's an understanding of frequency and vibration, and I think that I think there is perhaps some credit in them manifesting this. Perhaps sort of, I don't know, this information shared. I don't think obviously it's not people with a hammer and a chisel,
100%.
But are they laser cutting, for example, some of the detail? Maybe. Are they printing it? Is it 3D printed? but is it actually
Yeah.
manifested?
Yeah, it's very
So
interesting.
who knows? But I do find that more interesting than it being tech, because that means more. It gives us more information on the power and the capability we have within our own
Yeah.
mind.
Moving forward in history a bit to the era where we do have a little bit better documentation and understanding, and maybe our relatives were alive during World War II, but you cover some of the events surrounding that era, the occult aspects that the Nazis may have been involved with to achieve the level of technology that they were working with at the time, the Vril Society, Project Paperclip. What were some of the aspects that you focused on in the book?
Paperclip. I mean, that's perhaps the obviously I've done a chapter on Vril. A lot of people are talking about that today because it's constant. We've seen the images of black eyes, and we're thinking that they've joined Vril Society. They've had
Yeah.
the insertion behind normally behind their left eye. We've seen photographs
Now,
of
what is your
the
understanding
Queen.
of that they're having something inserted behind their eye when they get the black eye?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That it's actually something being inserted. Yeah, that's controlling. And
Like a
I
parasite of some
think
kind?
yes, but I think it's actually
Mm.
as much a living organism as it is actually tech.
Gotcha.
And I think that this is what ultimately products like Neuralink are going to do. And I think that that's where that's developed from. Because if you think about it, it's doing the same, it's effectively doing the same
Mm.
thing. It's an electronic device, it's an alien body that's actually having an element of control over your brain inserted into you. Well, isn't that what the Vril is? Because that's certainly what Neuralink
Mm.
is. So so I find that fascinating, and I think that there is perhaps a rabbit hole to explore there. Is Vril Neuralink?
Mm.
And I know there are other products out there as well. So I'm not just saying targeting Neuralink, because obviously Gates and Bezos have their own business doing exactly the same thing. But obviously, it's being sold to us as something that can help people who have lost perhaps the use of an arm, or they've got some sort of damage that needs repairing. Networks need reconnecting. Um, but that isn't what it's going to be sold for ultimately, is it? People are going to buy it, have it installed, because they think they can then literally react and problem solve and answer questions and regurgitate information as quickly as ChatGPT can without having to do the work.
Mm. Yeah.
But if it can do that, then I'm sure at the tweak of a button, it can do whatever you want it to do, and then you have an
Yeah.
army. Or, of course, you could just turn them all off.
The,
So I think the whole Vril thing's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of speculation as to how the level of technology was achieved, even looking at what the Nazis were using, and going back to the possibilities of what Tesla was developing. His inventions may have been stolen essentially and co opted, and the use of time travel may have been integrated into our reality at some point. Going back to the level of technology that the Germans may have had access to, what's your understanding of what level of technology they were able to get their hands on even back during that era?
Well, you mentioned it early on, the bell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a silver disc flying saucer, essentially. But of course, there are depictions of that going back, hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years. But it's, in that particular narrative, we're talking about them communicating with greys and potentially, in Antarctica, and that this information is being shared with them, that they're getting this technology. Of course, you could then say, is it coming through Vril? We've also, we've got people that were very, very, major players in, Hitler's cabinet, if you like, that were looking into occultism as well. They spent an incredible amount of time and resource and money looking into occulted knowledge and traveling all over the world to get it. So I think that they understood what was possible, what our potential actually is. And again, they weren't looking for blueprints. They weren't looking for sort of instruction manuals on how to build something. They were looking for occulted knowledge, sacred knowledge to do with cymatics, sacred geometry. So that sort of aligns a little bit to the manifestation of things.
Going back to Tesla, do you think that he was able to unlock secrets of time travel and that it may have been stolen from him in a sense?
I don't know, because the problem with Tesla is that I'm still, having been looking into this for years now, I'm still trying to find proof that he actually existed.
Oh, really?
Because I often wonder, yeah, I mean, I'd love him to, but there's just something very strange going on there, because you think he's a pioneer of technology, yet there's no video footage of him. Now, there'll be people out there that say, oh, well, that doesn't mean anything, or videos weren't around then, and that, but you know where I'm going with this. There is no footage, no moving film of him, but there is of Einstein, and there is of Edison, which is odd, because this man was talking at conferences. He was being paid to attend dinner parties and stand and give speeches and lectures. He was being interviewed by magazines and newspapers. This is not a shy person. Yeah. The other weird thing is, at school, I imagine if it was anything like my education, so the mainstream very much focuses on Edison. You don't even hear Tesla's name mentioned once, yet he's responsible for the electricity and how it flows and is operated within the school you're sat in. Now, that's weird. No living descendants. So just like Napoleon and many other famous people, I don't know if we can say his name on here, but the big H man with the Charlie Chaplin moustache from World War II, no living descendants, according to mainstream, narratives. So I find it weird when someone hasn't got any living descendants and there is no video footage of them at a time in which they were pioneering things like that. And he was a giant force in technology and technological advancement. Very, very strange. But then that leads to another rabbit hole where, where, if he did exist, where was he getting this information from? Now, if he did exist and he's creating all of these things, like over 300 patents, and they all have to work to get a patent, he was reverse engineering. Someone or something was giving him that information. Now, he said the Venetians were downloading it to him, and he would have blackouts during that process. His mother also had blackouts, and she invented too. She was an inventor. So he says that it's genetic. It was passed down to him. We don't know, do we? But I don't think he was downloading information from the Venetians. I think he was reverse engineering. But then, there is a possibility that, he was played by Frank Zappa. The images we see of him are Frank Zappa, like a lot of people think. And he was created to put a name to someone who couldn't be traced, so they could slowly release Antiquitech into the mainstream. So at a time in which there is an incredible amount of money for the people doing so, to earn from it, and then slowly releasing technology to a point now where it harms us, it monitors us, it tracks us. This is perhaps very old tech. I think we get the tech when they've finished playing with it, and it's become something that they can use to make our lives actually a lot worse. Through health, through just the way we live. But so I think there's money and control into most technology that we have around today.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I am. Either he didn't exist, and they put a name to someone, slowly released technology, and we credit all with one person that can't be tracked or traced, so it can't be debunked or proven. or he was being given this stuff. Someone somewhere was sharing information with him, and he was reverse engineering Tartarian Atlantean technology because his obsession was the ether.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the death ray, and he's making force fields, wasn't he? And he did, the X-ray, the remote controlled boat. That was all him. Neon lights. But his passion really was harnessing energy from the ether. Now that's Atlantean. That's what the pyramids did. There's something older there.
That's so interesting.
Way older.
You mentioned Antarctica earlier, and this is another one of those that I'm not sure if we will ever be able to find out in our lifetime what's really happening. I had a guest that's been on a few times, Brad Olsen. He actually took a trip down to Antarctica. He wasn't able to get too far inland, but he's also been doing a lot of research into the possibility of the Nazis building bases down there and having advanced technology. And he claims to have found old U-boat maps that they were using to send U-boats underground to these secret caverns and canals that went underground through the ice to get to some of the bases, which is very interesting. But again, I'm not sure if he's able to validate these maps with anybody. I know he's working on it. He's writing a book about it, but it is very interesting, some of the evidence and theories that have come out about the possibilities of what is down in Antarctica. What are your thoughts about some of those possibilities?
Well, I didn't know he had done that. So you're saying that he has the maps, or he's seen them? Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I didn't know that somebody out there had actually seen, documents suggesting that exists, and that. But yeah, I mean, we know that they were going there by U-boat. We kind of know that, don't we? And that they claimed there was a base there. But I didn't know somebody you'd spoken to actually has seen the maps of that. That's news.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to the episode so you can get the details yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. But yeah, but I suppose my only reservation would have to be that we don't know what we're looking at, do we? Like you said, do these people perhaps have absolutely no reason to say that they've got something they haven't? What would the point be? But there are a lot of people that do that claim that they have things that so I don't know, but I'd be interested to have a look.
Any thoughts about the theories that have come out about the possibilities of what's been seen down there, from pyramids to crashed craft, remnants of Nazi civilizations that possibly still utilize bases down there, entrances to Hollow Earth? There's some very interesting things that have been speculated.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something going on there, very, very significant, and I do lean towards it being not only an entrance, but there being bases there too. And I have no doubt that there are structures. I mean, I've seen images that look very much like statues and pyramids. I've also seen what appears to be an area of Antarctica where some sort of sphere, a spherical object at some speed, has impacted, and then dragged along to some distance. I was speaking to someone a little while ago who knew somebody who had been there, member of the armed forces, and they had actually been there, and there was a problem. Now, someone had got injured, and they had to go into a restricted area to get them. This person shouldn't have been where they were. As soon as they went in there, they're all, batting for the same team. As soon as this person went in there, this was with a helicopter, some people appeared and said, we don't care why you're here, don't care what you're doing, you can't be here. Whether you're saving someone or not, they shouldn't be here. You can't go, don't ever come back because next time you'll be shot down.
Wow.
And they were saying, well, we're all part of the same team, aren't we? They said, you just can't be here. And that was that. And that was an area on Antarctica. And that's all they said. But the people that appeared weren't wearing the same kind of kit. So, but the most fascinating thing that we have today to consider with regard to Antarctica has to be the treaty.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing going on there, why would enemies still abide by it? Sworn enemies are still, they're happy to go to war against each other, but neither of them will back down over, the Antarctic Treaty. They're still prepared to stand united for that, but they're happy to, shoot at each other. Now that suggests that there is something on there that is so important that nobody can ever find out. And we don't know what happens to people that are working there when they get home. Do they ever get home?
Yeah, right.
You can't have them wandering around.
While doing research for this book, were there any conspiracies that you came across that you had never heard of or weren't aware of before this?
No, because they're all things that I've written about.
No.
So none of these were written for the book. These were posts and blogs that I've just expanded upon and uncensored. Yes, I've added a few in there, but no, these were all things that people will resonate with. I mean, there might be some. Pigs, for example, is an interesting one.
What's that?
Pigs.
Okay.
The pig. Yeah, now some people might have heard of this one, some people might not have, but that's not something you would expect to find in a book on conspiracy theories, a whole chapter on the pig. So that's a good one.
Now, not to give away too much, but could you give us a little bit more about what the pigs is about?
Yeah, so there are a few trains of thought on this. A pig can't look up, it can only look down. The way its neck and skull are formed, it can only look at the ground. So it spends its life looking at the ground. It can't look up. It can never look up and see the sun. It is on the ground, looking permanently at mud and its own excrement. It has human eyes. It tastes like us. In fact, in some indigenous tribes, we are referred to as the long pig because we taste the same. There are religions that refuse to eat it. And it appeared 7,000 years ago. It appeared from nowhere. Now, people say it's a domesticated boar. It isn't. You can't use a heart from a boar in surgery on a human. And its skin and other tissue. When I learned to tattoo, I used to be a tattooist for years. When I learned to tattoo, you learnt on pig skin. Why? Because it was the closest to human. Everything about that animal suggests that is that's almost human. Certainly, not a million miles away. So is it possible that it's a hybrid between the boar and the human, the Homo sapien? Is that possible? And I think it is. They burn in the sun. They have eyes and eyelashes just like we do. It's scarily similar. And of course, we have religions that won't eat it. And that's not because it's too hot in their country to store it properly, because they eat chicken. And more people get salmonella from chicken than they do pork. But perhaps that's consumption in the West. Anyway, there are other people that believe that it is the tormented soul of someone who committed sin in a previous life, forced to look down, never to look up again. And that's why they're human-like. Yeah. Very, very closely connected with the DNA and their composition to their sort of molecular structure. The genetics and so on are very, very similar to a chimpanzee.
Wow, that's a very interesting one. I'll give you that much.
Yeah, but it goes a bit deeper than that, so I won't spoil it. But that's the nuts and bolts.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you also write about Barack Obama. I'm sure my audience has heard many of the conspiracy theories surrounding this man, but what did you focus on?
Well, Are we safe
Of
on
course,
here? Is it all
this
right what I
say whatever you want on
It's
here.
not a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously, first of all, we can talk about Big Mike.
Right.
I think most people know Michael LaVaughn Robinson as being. I've had the misfortune of seeing the tackle on the move as well. So, you know, yeah. So I think we all know that, and obviously we're seeing photographs of them together at college. So there's obviously that conspiracy. There's also, I put some truth bombs in there. That he carpet bombed more civilians than any other president of the United States. The man was an absolute lunatic. A very nasty piece of work. But of course, the other conspiracy with him as well is the possibility that he is the grandson of Adolf Hitler.
Oh, really?
Didn't you know that?
This is new to me, actually.
Right. Okay. So, Ann Dunham. So, Hitler has 3 children. And they come over to Argentina and then have a 4th. All girls. 4 girls. One, and again, I don't really want to spoil it too much, but one becomes Angela Merkel. Yeah, EU.
Yeah.
So Angela Merkel, yeah. Another one becomes Theresa May. And another one becomes Ann Dunham. Now, these are all sent back to Germany to be educated. So there's the names have changed. Everything is changed. They're put into families. And obviously Theresa May is educated in England. They're put into families in strategic positions. Now, Adolf and Eva have another daughter whose name becomes Ann Dunham. Now, Ann Dunham marries a Kenyan. Turns out that this Kenyan bloke's already married, but it's too late. She's pregnant. So she comes back from Kenya to Argentina, meets an American fella. They move to America, and he raises the son as his, and that's that son is Barack Obama. So the mother of Ann Dunham.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
the mother's Ann Dunham, and the father is Adolf Hitler. And but then actually I obviously explain it in great detail. That actually came from a leaked FBI document.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so he put his grandchildren and his children into, one way or another, his bloodline went into power.
Yeah.
But he was a Rothschild anyway. They all are.
Speaking of the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, these are, of course, the names that we hear. They obviously had a massive role to play in setting up the institutions and essentially resetting civilization, building it in this new dystopian image. But we never hear any names other than the common ones that we've been presented. To what extent do you think they hold power and influence, or do you think that there are families more powerful than these that we will never hear about?
You see, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Because a lot of people believe, okay, we've got these 13 bloodline families, like obviously the Rothschilds, Orsini, DuPont, Rockefeller, so on. Are there 13 bloodline families that are hidden from us? Is it possible that we wouldn't know the real people? We're just given these 13 families to obsess over and research. That's exactly the point. We're supposed to think that there's another 13 hidden families. They operate in plain sight. That's all part of it. That's not only is that part of the fun, but also they've got this karmic retribution going on. If they don't tell us what they're doing, and if they lie and they deceive and they hide, then when they meet their maker, then they have to answer for what they've done, which is why they're so obsessed with longevity. That's why they're taking adrenochrome. They don't want to die. They know that they haven't followed the rules. They're scared of dying. They want to live as long as they possibly can, even if it's memory transfer. We're talking, Project Lazarus. They don't want to die. So no, I don't believe there are 13 hidden families. I mean, Armin Ra said he was leaving everything to the Ra-childs. That was Marduk, and an Anunnaki, you know, god, if you like. So no, I very much think it's those. I think it all stems from the Rothschilds, and then you've got these cousins and offshoots and so on. But that bloodline remains as pure as it can.
Well, it's also very easy to see why many people look towards non-human beings that may be in charge of things beyond, because every agenda that we are forced to participate in, there's nothing beneficial for humankind. Everything is anti-human. The more we enter this technological age, the more disconnected we are from spirituality and nature, and the more strangely anti-human all the agendas and systems become that we're forced to participate in. And that just makes me wonder, are these families just multi-generationally breeding psychopaths, or is there something else that is feeding that system?
I think they're psychopaths. Absolutely. I think they're very low vibrational. I think that's why they like us to suffer. There's an incredible amount of enjoyment from that. So going to war, serves two purposes. One, they can depopulate and flatten an area, get rid of architecture and get rid of a few million people. But also there's enjoyment from watching that happen. I don't think they know how to love. I don't think they're creative. You couldn't get one of them to play an instrument particularly well. So I think that they're not the same as us. They are very, very negative, very low energy. They're parasitical. I think they feed off our energy, and they've also fed off of our tax, our hard work, our money. So they are parasites in every sense of the word, and that's the best description. That I believe that they are probably a different blood group. I lean towards it being RH null, but it may be a blood group we do not know. From research I did, it was suggested that they don't even have what we would class as a human blood group, and that their DNA isn't human. So I think we refer to them as reptiles because their brain is more reptilian in how it acts. And that is Anunnaki, I believe. Now, we know Anunnaki isn't a race of people. We just call them Anunnaki. So alien, yeah. And I think perhaps they looked a little bit reptilian. We don't really know what they looked like, do we? I mean, we've got Sumerian tablets and so on, but we don't know what color they were. Were they a sort of a bluey color? Is that? Or a greeny color? Was the skin a bit scaly? I mean, ours is under a microscope, but was theirs more evident? So I think that that's where the whole reptilian thing comes from.
I've heard enough testimony from experiencers and people who have witnessed things like people shape-shifting into a reptilian to think that there's not something to this. I definitely think that there are forces beyond humans that are at play here. I couldn't tell you if it was a shape-shifting reptilian or if it's just, like you said, maybe an integrated bloodline, different types of human beings. But it is extremely anti-human, and it will always bring up that question whether or not we're dealing with something that is indeed human or beyond. But I want to get your thoughts in some of the things that are unfolding right now.
So, sorry, one thing I wanted to say was actually regarding shape-shifting itself. Now that I don't know if that actually is that they are physically changing shape in front of us, that actually happens. I think that they actually make our minds see something different. And that occasionally there's a glitch. So what we see isn't actually what they look like. It's what they want us to think they look like. A lot of people have researched that and saying by shape shifting, we don't mean that actually it's a reptile one minute, a big lizard,
Yeah.
for a moment, and then suddenly it looks
I've
like
heard this often
like a
that they
human.
have the
It's a
ability
mind.
to affect our perception. This would make a
Exactly.
lot of sense with other people's paranormal experiences where they are having an experience with a being that's appearing one way, but they have a hypnotic regression, and it turns out that it was a screen memory or the being appeared completely different than they remember. I wanted to get your thoughts on what's happening right now in the UK and otherwise, and Canada. It's not quite in the United States yet, but it's a slippery slope, and I can see
Mm.
with the right high impact event or propaganda where it could trickle over here. And that's what's happening with people being arrested for making social media posts, for speaking their mind online. And it's pretty insane from what I hear, but you're there. What are you seeing over there?
We've had over 4,000
Jesus.
arrests so far. Yeah, for what people have put on social media. I only know. I mean, I don't watch the news. I purposely don't watch the news, but I'm sent information by lots of people every day. But I will not participate in buying a
Yeah,
newspaper or watching a news
yeah.
channel because I know that what I'm seeing isn't real. But there was quite a famous case here in the UK. I mean, I live in England. As far as I'm concerned, I'm nothing to do with the United Kingdom. That's a corporation. It doesn't exist. It's just a document. Um, but there's a woman from England that actually has just come out of prison. She got
Mm.
sentenced for a tweet. So yeah, it's out of control. But of course, if you're prepared to fight these things, you could argue that actually it's the straw man that's there that appears on the paperwork. So there might be a way around it with that. It's getting
Mm.
harder. You know, I, I often wonder why I haven't been demonetized on YouTube or banned. I mean, I have been banned from Facebook, and I've only just started being monetized. It took me 9 months to resolve that, so it's only recent. Um, but I know it's going to get
Mm.
worse. My wife was saying to me earlier on that they're going, they've announced now, Meta have announced they're going to start reading our DMs, our messages through Messenger to people. And I laughed and said, they probably did that since the start. That's probably always been the case. But now they're making it public knowledge. Then, of course, it can be used in a court of law.
Mm.
Now that's where it changes. So yes, but it's getting bad over
Yeah.
here.
Right now, it seems what we're experiencing correlates heavily to what could have possibly happened to the Tartarian Empire. It seems like we're in the midst of a massive
Yeah.
reset, that they're changing our history, altering our reality in ways that the next generation will have no idea what happened decades before. And I was telling my guest yesterday how this is such a long game that it's multi-generational plot to enslave the planet basically and cause multiple resets so that we have no idea about our true history. But if they tried to roll things out too quickly, people wouldn't just blindly go along with the non-human ideologies. So they have to have a high impact event here, a war there, take away a little bit of freedom here so that the ridiculous agendas they put out seem a bit more enticing whenever your freedoms are being taken away. And that's the only way to participate in reality. So this is going to continue, but where do you see it all going? And do you have hope that we still have a chance to slide in a different direction, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Yeah. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. And it's going to get hard because here there's this big push for digital ID. They want us to move ultimately to social credit scoring like they have operating in China. That's where this is heading. And there are people out there that say, oh, it doesn't matter if you haven't done anything wrong, then it doesn't matter if they have it or not. It's good for immigration. Of course, it's not good for immigration. If someone's here illegally, they're not going to not sign up for digital ID just in case, are they? They're still going to work and operate under the radar for people that are paying cash. It makes no difference. And the people coming here, the immigrants that we have arriving by dinghy, often on our shores, are actually the new army. They're going to be trained, uniformed, and that they're the people that are going to be patrolling the streets, enforcing digital ID. I think what they're going to do is, because the immigration bit's backfired, and because the digital ID is having some resistance, a lot of people are seeing it as an invasion of privacy that aren't awake. A lot of these are sleep, sheep or whatever you want to call them, these sleeping souls. They still think it's an invasion of privacy. They don't think it's going to lead to social credit scoring. They don't realise it's going to stop them being able to buy another steak or bottle of wine this week because of their carbon intake. They don't believe any of that. They just see it as an invasion of privacy and a breach of their human rights. So that's causing resistance. So that's fantastic. So we've got this situation now where if they rolled it out, I don't think that many people would go for it. So they need to do something. They need to push that back into a narrative about vaccine passports. So I think there's going to be another pandemic, another outbreak, but it will target children. Respiratory again, it will target children. It will be 5G, and it will be a combination of 5G and vaccinations, the heavy metals like aluminium and graphene. It'll be connected to that. There obviously won't be a virus, just like there wasn't a COVID. It's we know what this is all about. But they're going to target children, I think, because that's more powerful. If your son can't play with my son anymore because yours has had hasn't had the vaccine and mine has, I don't want our kids playing together. That can get parents fighting. That can have problems at the school gate. That can have problems with school itself and out of school clubs like playing football or rugby or whatever it is you do, or soccer. I think that children are a better target than the elderly that they went for last time. So I reckon another vaccine, another pandemic with a vaccine that will just be the same crap they put in everybody last time, but ramping up the 5G to cause people to collapse.
Yeah.
So that will then make people more inclined to get digital ID to show they're up to date with the vaccines, because they don't want people mixing with their children and so on. That will be how they get the digital ID in, and I think we'll then see a civil war.
We live in critical times. How do you find balance looking at all these theories, doing the work that you do, and living where you live? How do you navigate through everything, even with family and friends, and trying to be a part of this dystopian world while not really being too much of a part of it, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think you dip in and out of it. So, I'm saying I don't want to be part of the system, but I have a bank account. I sell my books on Amazon. I use the system, but I don't depend on the system. So I don't have this Stockholm syndrome going on, where the very people I despise I use, or I call upon for help. I use the system. I don't need the government for anything, but I do need to operate with a couple of the companies that the World Economic Forum are friends with. But I don't follow any government narratives. I don't care. I don't participate. I don't vote. I'm not interested. But it's going to get harder. I think we're going to see shops. A lot of shops aren't taking cash anymore, so I won't use them. I'll go without. If it gets to the point where we can't travel unless we have digital ID, then I'll get a fake one from somewhere.
Yeah.
Couldn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people did that with the COVID jabs. Got fake app that showed that you were fully up to date. So I'll do that. But I've got to be honest. Some of the things I write about, some of the things I say, if a police car pulled up outside, I would know why. So it is something I think about. But with friends and family, I will talk about things that I think are okay. And if someone in front of me that's a friend starts telling me they've just had their winter flu jab, I just don't raise the subject, because what I've learned is some people can be woken up, some people can be helped when they wake up, and some people need to stay asleep. And you can't choose who that's going to be. So it might mean that you lose friends and family. It might mean that actually something goes wrong. They have a vaccine, and then, they become ill, and then, and then ultimately unalived. So, we're going to lose people in both respects along the way. And I think that, my youngest son often says that you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most of your time with. So for me, that can't be people that aren't awake, really.
How do you think we should be navigating our rapidly growing technology, things like AI, and how we rely on it and use it? It's already being used for very deceptive purposes. The quality of imagery and visual that's come out is indistinguishable almost from reality at times, so it becomes difficult to navigate through that. What are your thoughts on where we're at with technology, AI, and how we should be handling this in the future?
I think that again, it's a little bit like the system. I think we use it when we need to. So I use it to generate images to support my posts that I put up every day. I was a graphic designer years ago. I do not have the time. And I don't have a bottomless pit of money to pay a graphic designer
Yeah.
to do everything. I get them to do my books. He's a guy called Billy. He does all of my graphic design for me. But if I was to get him to design 87 images to go in that book, then that would cost an incredible amount of money. So I use it for that. And I will sometimes go on ChatGPT to have an argument with it. Because I find that quite interesting, the way it starts to try and come off as if it's offended.
Huh.
And I try and sort of break it, and then I have to remind it can't be offended. It's a computer program, and have a bit of fun with it. And I will use it if I need to get dates quickly for something. For example, when did blah 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 die? When was he born? When did he die? If you go onto Google and type that in, the first hit might actually be someone who's I don't know, brought out a poster of this person or a painting. The next one might be Wikipedia, which is isn't worth entertaining to start with. And the next one could be an article in a newspaper about the person. You could go through 3 or 4 articles to find the answer you're looking for. So I'll use it to get something I've forgotten, or I'm just unsure about, or I can't remember where I wrote it down. But if you're going to use AI to replace a human, then that's where the problem starts. And I think there will be people out there that are getting it to do their job for them, and the boss doesn't know. There'll be people who are doing dissertations using AI. And I think that they might come a cropper, because imagine if you secured yourself a job with this incredible knowledge that you've got, and AI, ChatGPT, for example, is doing everything for you. So you're coming out with all of this information, but you don't understand it yourself. You're just regurgitating it verbatim.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if you go on to log on one day and it says this service is no longer available? You need the Neuralink to upgrade.
Right.
You're going to lose your job or get the Neuralink. That, I think, is where it's headed. It's a trap. And I don't think that we should go to the cinema to watch an AI film. I don't think that people should be using it like they are. People are talking to it like it's a friend. People are asking it for medical advice, help with their relationship, and so on. That's the problem. That people are making it personal.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's a series of ones and zeros.
Right on. One more thing before we let you go today. You've got zombies in the title of the book. What aspects of zombies did you write about?
Well, there are several, actually. I mean, first of all, there is actually people will be able to go online and research this. There is actually evidence out there, declassified reports on a staged zombie attack that the US military have been yeah, they put a
Oh, I
lot
think
of
I've heard
time and
about
resource
this.
into
Yeah.
that. Yeah, they've actually planned for it. Oddly enough, they planned for nine
Yeah.
11 didn't they? And they were doing that actual exercise on the day those planes allegedly hit. Um, so yeah, so there's a bit of information on that, but also the next pandemic that's due, the Marburg virus, which is supposed to be next year, respiratory, children, so on. As I said, they're going to ramp the 5G up. That's going to react with the winter flu jab or the COVID jabs in you, and that is going to get people. That's going to affect people to an extent where they might just drop down, or it will cause neurological damage, and they will appear to be zombie-like. So the nickname for the next outbreak is the zombie virus. It's actually the Marburg virus, and if you want to see it operating in plain sight, check out a very old film called Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman. That is the next pandemic. That's what you're seeing there. COVID was a trial, just a dummy run, a warm up. The big one will be referred to as the zombie virus. So there are two elements to it. One is that they're actually already planning for this. The second, and have been for a while, how to contain and control zombies. And the other one is that's going to be the nickname. But of course, there are also some interesting stories in there about people that have come back from the dead and been used as slave labor. And that's going back generations that there are people, and this has happened in sort of within some tribes and communities, across South America, that these people have been buried, and then a few days later they've been exhumed and sent to work. And so they've been seen working in fields and in mines and so on. But I don't want to spoil that, because that part's pretty pretty messed up, because I actually give you the names, the places, names of doctors, the lot. This isn't someone making out that, or passing down, an old story that they heard like Chinese whispers. This is names and places.
I love it, man. Well, Guy, this is fantastic. Before you go, remind the audience how they can find out more about you and pick up your books.
Well, Amazon's the easiest place to get one from, but if you want a signed copy, get in touch with me through my website. The books aren't on there yet, my latest book, but they should be soon. But you can still contact me and I can get a signed copy out. It's just they've not been uploaded and entered onto it as a new product. So my website is the best place to find me if someone wants to get one of my other books, read my blogs, or get in touch about getting a signed copy of my new one there. But that will also link them to Facebook and YouTube.
Excellent.
On the homepage, and they might find some of the blogs interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So I know I do.
So that's oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's the tartarianempire.co.uk.
Excellent.
That's the website. But obviously they can get my books on Amazon. They'll get them quicker, and they probably won't have to pay for shipping. But some people like signed ones, even though I'm obviously not famous or anything. Some people, I think, just like collecting books that are signed, and if it's only going to cost you shipping, the difference in price.
There you go.
Then, but actually, having said that, I sell the hardback for £10 less than Amazon. Amazon set the retail price on it, but obviously, I thought you don't need to make that much money. That's ridiculous. So rather than making Amazon making a bloody fortune out of each book, I'd rather make £2.68.
Well, there you go.
Which is about $3.50, and people actually get to read it rather than get charged a lot of money from Amazon. But the paperback's half the price, so there is that.
Well, this is fantastic work, and we'll definitely be talking again. There's so much more we can get into. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order.